Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Crimson. With me, Kindar of the Tiger Rights, and Tom, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we are doing chapter 16. I need a break. Alex stopped and bent down, trying to catch his breath. Trying to catch his breath. The treadmill started beeping. Keep going. Will said from the one next to him. 20 minutes, that said. It was running much faster than Alex had been, and he wasn't even breathing hard. No one else in the gym seemed to be straining as hard as Alex was. Alex glared at him. He wanted to curse, but didn't have the breath. Forced himself to run. He forced himself to run, and the machine stopped beeping. Please, there couldn't be much time left, Alex thought, before glancing at the time. And he still had 10 minutes to go. That couldn't be right. He'd already run more than that. The timer finally hit 0, and Alex slowed down, then stopped, holding to the steadying bars to keep standing. He couldn't be this out of shape. Someone had to have tricked him and changed his readout on the treadmill. Yes, his weight had always been high, but he'd been good about getting in plenty of walking. He hadn't had any problems keeping up with Jack in the market. Speaking of Jack, or of Tristan, and the constant nightmares he had. To the mix of killing Alex saw every night or committed, a new set had been added, centering on Jack becoming Tristan, and Alex being in love with a monster, having sex with him. A bottle was shoved in his face. Drink. Alex got in a few long gulps before it was taken away. Drink, Will said, not drown. He handed Alex a towel. Lift weight now. Alex shook his head. I can't do it, panted. The young man rolled his eyes. You can. Flexible. He poked Alex's belly. Gotta get in shape. Thought for a moment, then grinned. Gotta get new shape. Alex watched Will walk away, and his body hurt just doing that. His legs and arms shook, but if those hadn't been involved in the exercise. Will came back and grabbed his arm. Alex had no choice but to follow. He had Alex lie down on a bench, placed the bar in his hands, and adjusted the display on it. Alex felt the bar gain weight, and he strained to lift it under Will's supervision. After a full set of 15 lifts, Will took his place. He adjusted the setting, easily did his lift before setting it back on the holder. Alex lay back down and tried to lift it. It wouldn't move until Will changed the setting again. How heavy is it for you? Alex asked as he slowly pushed the bar up. Will shrugged. Duck said it. Alex barely managed the 15th lift, and with Will's help, put the bar back. Will retook his place, adjusted the setting, and did his set, his arm shaking for the last 3. Alex read the display, but there were no numbers on it, just Will's name. Does Doug do this for everyone in the crew? Alex asked. Just those who need to be forced. Alex raised an eyebrow, and Will shrugged again. Don't like sweating, the young man said. They moved to a different machine and did like exercises on it. Then back to the arms, the right one, the left, then the left. After that, it was different exercises for his leg and so on. So long that Alex felt his body was ready to fall apart by the time they were done. By the time each exercise was over, more muscles hurt. Or at least, Alex thought they were muscles. He hadn't known his chest had muscles in it. He realized he hadn't known much about his body, about how his body worked. He might have picked up a thing or two if he'd spent time admiring the human guy. If he'd spent time admiring a human guy's body, but they never piqued his interest. Maybe you should ask Doc for a course, he grinned. He might as well surprise her again while he was at it. Doc's mouth had dropped when Alex showed up and asked for the exercise regimen. You're volunteering? She asked dubiously. Alex told her about the altercation at the dining hall, and she sighed. What have I told you about going places alone? Can't have Will accompany me everywhere, He'd replied. Then get someone else. You're a target, and Anders isn't one to give up. Whew, it isn't like I know anyone else. You're certainly too busy to do it. Alex had noticed there were always someone with an injury waiting to see Doc. She'd given him a look and said, that said, he wasn't very bright. Now food, Will said after they were showered and dressed. Alex shook his head. I can't. I just want to sleep. Need food. Again, Will dragged Alex around. Sat up at a table and came back with 2 trays. Almost before they started eating, a woman sat next to Alex. Hey, Will, she said. Who's your friend? Anna? That's Crimson. She offered her hand. Pleasure, Anna said with a smile. But Anna was small and worried. So, you're the one who saved our asses. Barry mentions you every chance he gets. Alex couldn't reply. Another woman sat next to Ella and placed 2 trays down. Hey, hon, he said, giving Anna a light kiss. That? Crimson, Anna said. He's the guy Perry keeps talking about. Pat was a little taller and heavier built than Anna. 2 more women joined them, each sitting on each side of Will. A seer and a sour-looking one. Don't worry about Jen, she said, looking like. Don't worry about Jen. She always looks like this when she has to get up early. Get up this early. Alex raised an eyebrow. It was almost noon. Asir looked at the other woman over Will's head. Smile, love. You get to protect someone from Anders. Who knows? You might actually get to kick his ass. Jen glared at Asir, but Alex thought he saw her lips work up. Protect? He asked. Will grinned. Beck set it up. Alex looked at the woman. Of course she did. Alex fell on his bed. You rest, Will said. I gotta work. Alex didn't reply. 5 minutes, he told himself. Give his body 5 minutes to recuperate from the morning's exercise and the food. Then he'd get to work himself. He had to get the computer fixed. When he opened his eyes, the chronometer said an hour had passed. He groaned as he sat up. While his body was sore, he actually felt capable of moving now. He headed for the door, only to find it wouldn't open. The controls indicated it was locked. He called Will. Something's wrong with the door. It's locked and I can't unlock it. Busy. Get someone else. Connection was ended. Okay, Alex thought, but who? He didn't know who to contact to fix the door. The only other person he knew was Dot. As he pulled up her contact information, he saw he had new people on his list. Trisha, Anna, Jennifer, and Asir. That must have happened while he ate. What's the problem? Like answered before Alex could say anything, and she sounded annoyed. If you can move, get yourself to me. If you can't, but you can talk, get someone to bring you to me. I'm not crossing the ship for anything less than life or death. It's Alex. Crimson, how are you feeling? I'm sore, but I'm okay. Sorry to disturb you, but I'm locked in my room and I don't know who to get to fix that. Oh, it isn't broken. Now she sounded amused. Alex tried it again, but it remained locked. Well, it isn't responding. I know. I had Asir adjust the lock. Will's the only one who can open it. Will's the only one who can open the door from the inside. Alex looked around the room, feeling his stomach tighten. Are you telling me I'm a prisoner now? Peter bubbled up. Oh no, I don't trust you to use your. Oh no, but I don't trust you to use your escort. I trust you met them. Asir mentioned they had lunch with you. I did, but I don't need. Crimson, Ender is pissed at you. That means he and his cronies are going to look for any opportunity to hurt you. They aren't going to do anything openly since you're a passenger. But on this ship, it's easy to pass something off as an accident. Since I happen to like you, I want you to stay whole. Now, you have their contact. Check. Each will tell you when they're free. I picked them because their schedule never completely overlapped. This is ridiculous, Alex grumbled. Maybe, but it's going to keep you alive to reach your destination. Fine. He ended the call, cursing loudly. He wasn't a child. He was perfectly capable of taking care of himself. And it showed Doc. He grabbed his earpiece and went to the terminal. Getting past the interface and to the underlying code was simple. All he had to do was find the door control and he'd be out. After 5 minutes, he rested his head against the screen and cursed. The door wasn't part of the system the terminal could access. All that compartmentalization meant he couldn't get himself out of this. He'd have to fix this as soon as he could, right after life-critical systems. With a sigh, he checked the list of bodyguards. Will and Pat were marked as busy. Since he'd be going to her lab, he contacted the seer. He showed up a few minutes later, all smiles. Alex didn't speak to her on the way there. As far as he was concerned, she was as much to blame for him being under house arrest as Doc. He sat at the console and said to her. He expected her to leave, but she sat at one of the assistant stations. He glared at her back. This was just weird. She didn't even trust him to be alone in her lab. Was she afraid he'd leave without telling her? Looked at the door. Was she going to lock him in here too? Forced himself to calm down and focus on the work. The computer didn't sound any different, which in this case was a good thing. Normally, a complex system like the ship's computer had multiple subroutines that set their health. Those could fix minor damage caused by either an intrusion or through code mutation. On this ship, that had to be sequestrated somewhere else if they even did the work they were supposed to anymore. With the level of insanity that permeated it, there was no way to know. He was silent as he worked, except for a few queries to check the computer's response. He normally was more vocal. Part of coercion involved talking to the system, making friends with it, distracting it so he could slip in code. But this one was in no state of conversations. At least it wasn't fighting him, so at least it wasn't fighting him too much. It knew it was there to help, but every so often it got an attack of paranoia, and Alex found himself in a fight to keep it from undoing his work, making things much worse. But the attack weren't as frequent anymore comforted him, since he was certain his betrayal was what had triggered them. What did you just do? Cassia asked, and Alex nearly jumped out of his chair. He glared at her while he caught his breath. Oh, just let that smile appear. I dare you, Asir. You better keep those quivering lips from forming it, or you are going to regret it. The smile didn't form, and when he noticed she was fixed on the screen, he thought he had imagined it. I repositioned some of the code to see if it will reduce the amount of pain it's in. You can do that? Just move code around? Doesn't that screw up the programming? It depends on the code. Some are dependent on their location, but most are modular. Sometimes I can even change the entire phrasing without altering what it does. And since the computer's personality is formed by how the code interact, making those changes will change its personality. She gave him a blank stare. You are familiar with the core computer personality theorem, right? She shook her head. Alex frowned. How could she not know that? It was part of the first course programmers went through. Where did you learn programming? Here. He looked around. Here? Who taught you? I did. Alex stared at her. How had she managed to learn anything usable from the mess that was this computer? How did someone learn on their own? Computers were far too complex to sit at a terminal and figure them out. Turned back to the screen and gave her the basics, demonstrating what he meant as he went. There was a knock on the door, but he ignored it. Will was off working. Alex hadn't planned on going anywhere. He was busy trying to access his vault without raising any of the alarms he suspected Luminex security had put around it. Everyone had a vault, a space on the network where they could store valuable information or mementos of their past. They came with basic security, but anyone who knew anything about coding upgraded the security on it. Wow. He knew he'd put some of his old textbook in there, and he wanted to retrieve them for his seer. She showed a lot of interest in learning. Those texts would help her more than just following along with what he did. Fortunately, she couldn't just go and get them on the net. Programming was well guarded by the corporations and the schools. The knock came again. You have to open the door yourself, he yelled. I can't do it. The door opened and Anna stepped through. I know. I didn't want to barge in. Okay. What can I do for you? You can follow me, said Wilsall. You don't know how to fight. Getting in shape is a good start, but it isn't going to do any good. It isn't going to be any good if you can't throw a punch. He's teaching me. I'm better, she said to him. Is that what you normally wear? Alex looked at himself. He was wearing denim pants and a shirt. Yeah. Do you have anything looser? I can work with this, but you'll want something with more range of motion. I have dress pants. She went into the bathroom to change. Alex came back a moment later wearing black pants and done for the most recent company function. They were a little tight. Somehow he'd expected them to be looser. I need exercise and diet. He'd have to have weight. He'd had to have lost weight by now, so why weren't the pants looser? She nodded and led him to the room where he and Will had sparred. He positioned in the center of the mat and motioned for him to join her. An hour later, Alex had discovered that Anna was an expert in hand-to-hand fight. Was an expert hand-to-hand fighter. The petite woman could send him to the floor without so much as putting her hair out of place. When she was done, she escorted him back to his room where he crashed and promised himself he wasn't getting out of it until he reached Somalia. 1 hour later, Jennifer entered his room, pulled him out of bed, and dragged him to a shooting range. He protested that he didn't need this, that he had no intention of ever using one of those things again. She didn't listen. She pointed to the gun on the counter and told him to pick it up before she shoved it where the sun didn't shine. After an hour was done, Alex comforted himself with the fact that at least only one part of his body hurt, his ears. Jennifer either growled at him or screamed. Someone who was supposed to want to do this, he didn't act like it. And this concludes chapter 16. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next one is going to be, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the whole book or the other ones in the series, they are available on all major e-retail stores. There's a link for that in the notes, as well as to my Patreon, should you want to support me and get access to way more stories than what's published, and to my Twitch, where I do these live, and as well as my writing. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.